Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the news today, we hear that a $453 million transmission line to sell hydroelectricity to Minnesota is in jeopardy because of the Premier's mismanagement. It's no wonder that Manitoba has a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure deficit when the Premier spends so much of his time burning bridges. A year ago, when the board of Hydro quit, it was because the Premier refused to meet with them to discuss a looming financial crisis at Hydro. To create a diversion from that fiasco, the Premier picked a fight with the Métis Federation over $1.4 million a year, when Hydro's woes are because PC and NDP governments have been undermining Hydro by taking over $400 million a year, even as that corporation takes on billions of dollars in debt. Can the Premier explain how he's managed to pack 17 years' worth of NDP mistakes on Hydro into just 3 years of PC government?
The Honourable First Minister.
So let's get this straight, Madam Speaker. The Leader of the Second Opposition has joined with the Leader of the Opposition to call on Ottawa to raise carbon taxes on Manitobans. They've said that Manitobans should pay for not being green enough, and yet they block a green project to export hydroelectricity to the United States, despite the fact it has gone through every hoop, despite the fact it has been approved by the Clean Environment Commission, despite the fact it has been approved by the National Energy Board. They block it at the political level, Madam Speaker, and claim to be a green government. Just run to the doors on that one, Madam Speaker, and see how far that takes you.
Order. The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Manitoba Hydro is supposed to be independent from government. That is why it has a board, or has had a board. They are liable for decisions of management, but we keep hearing that this Premier, his staff, and others have been bypassing boards and issuing directives directly to management at Crown corporations. It raises concerns about whether Hydro's actions are being directed by the Premier, especially when those actions include breaking deals to compensate communities for the cost and inconvenience of a power line being run over their land. It's not just the MMF or First Nations, Madam Speaker, it's municipalities as well. This government is often directly announcing that deals have been cancelled. Is it management and the board at Hydro that are calling the shots and tearing up deals, or is it the Premier?
The Honourable First Minister.
So the federal Liberal government has said that the independent arm's length processes of our province, and through the Clean Environment Commission and others, which were run to a gold standard, which gave opportunity after opportunity for all Manitobans to participate, many of which were excluded by the previous NDP government from the process entirely, that those processes aren't good enough, and that the National Energy Board, which is under its own direction, is not the right place to get agreement on projects. It's bad enough, Madam Speaker, that we can't get a pipeline built in this country, that we can't get flood protection built in this country. Now we can't even do green energy projects without a politician under the Liberal government in Ottawa telling us that we have to buy somebody off before we do. That's the old way of doing things, Madam Speaker, but that's not the Manitoba way of doing things.
The Honourable Leader of the Second Opposition on the final supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What's truly amazing is the Premier doesn't just tear up contracts and agreements he inherited. He's willing to pass laws to cancel contracts he doesn't like and even tears up his own plans. And there's a serious problem here. The members opposite like to talk about a good climate for business, but the absolute bedrock of business stability and certainty is that when government signs a contract, it will keep its word. That is something that business people and investors can literally take to the bank. Does the Premier see that he's undermining credibility in the government, that this government can't be trusted to keep its word, even if it's a signed contract?
The Honourable First Minister. I'm not sure of the member's previous career. There was one as a consultant. It required him to do any basic legal training, but he must understand the nature of contracts versus the nature of discussions. Madam Speaker, what he is advocating for is that we pay David Chartrand $70 million so we can build a hydro line. And that is not going to happen with this government and should never happen with any government. Madam Speaker, Manitoba's Métis people are hydro owners. They are hydro ratepayers. They will be adversely impacted directly in their own homes, families, and small businesses by any government that would choose to spend tens of millions of dollars clearing people out of the way so it could build projects. That's not how this government will function. That's the way the NDP ran things, Madam Speaker, and we inherited the mess they created. We don't propose to create another one. We propose to clean their mess up.